I'm Tammy English. Again, I'm the chair of the Sierra Club. I also serve on the executive committee for the State Sierra Club as the treasurer. My background in not only the Sierra Club but in environmental research, I do a lot of recycling research for the university, and then was at some things for the city a while ago, looking at how we can produce invasive species.
Oh, you're working on that?
I did originally before they actually accepted the goat method.
I gotta go see the real good one.
I know. I'm pretty excited about the goat method. Yeah, so very
big goat poison ivy is hard for people.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we worked on some of that before they adopted the goat method. So yeah, we're good.
I'm Fred Paye, retired from the University of London Survey Water Resources Research Program. Hanging around at the university these days.
And I didn't realize that we had been emailing about a fall conference coming up, so that's nice to see, Fred.
I'm Don Rule, retired college teacher. Small colleges, as far away as Vernon. I've been here since 1932. It's a toddler, slowly eroded plateau, and everything that goes into it and the way we use it. So I'm trying to educate myself.
And I'm Hugh Ernest. I'm here to shill for something called the Mulberry River Society. We're just formed a 501c3. And we're going to try to, we're doing nothing but talking right now, but we're going to try to impact the legislative process. I met with all 4 congressmen, and we're going to try to have a retreat for all the committee chairs and the officers sometime in July and get a strategic plan. One of the people that we've looked at is this wonderful woman here on the Illinois River Partnership, because she's done a great job and got people to work together rather than doing this. So anyway, that's the reason I'm here, and I'm in the Sierra Club all the time.
All right, so we're doing well. Thanks for having me. I was just going to share a little bit. I haven't been able to be here before, so I wasn't sure how much some of you might know or want to know about the partnership, and brought a few things. And so the Illinois River Watershed map is inside here. A lot of people like to look at maps and so on. So this is kind of a really interesting map, and seeing where the Illinois River starts just south of Fayetteville and flows north up there, and then takes a turn and flows west and goes down into Lake Chinchiller, and where it flows back into the Arkansas River and back to the Mississippi and down to the Gulf. So it's pretty interesting that we, as a partnership, work with NRCS under some Mississippi River Basin initiatives. We're like, well, you're not on the Mississippi River, but yes, it actually has a connection as it goes back to the Arkansas River and across to the Mississippi and down to the Gulf. But this is a little about kinds of things that we try to really focus on in some of our major initiatives, rain gardens, tree farms, riparian buffers, conservation programs. It was really interesting to hear John and what he's doing with his land with the for land trust. We do a lot of work with trying to educate landowners about NRCS programs in the watershed, and this is a really great resource here for all the different best management practices that NRCS has, and in particular in the Illinois River watershed, because we are a tributary to the Mississippi River Basin, because we are in the nutrient surplus areas. We also have some special programs for agricultural producers. So that's very interesting if you would like to read more about that. We have a Clean Water Ranger program, and this is our one of the art grants that we got developed with one of our local singer-songwriters, Marshall Mitchell, our children's program, and it's a little book with kids' songs and a CD of songs. The watershed song, Living Water, Planting Trees, the riparian buffer, only rain down the drain, habitat, I'm a fish, rain garden, stop, turn around, and rivers, lakes, and streams. Those are the names of the songs. So, and then this was a little activity book that was adopted from a group that had done some work in New Jersey, and we give this to a little bit older, the kids in upper junior high, I think, has both the Illinois River watershed and the Beaver Lake watershed maps in it. Again, in most watersheds, many of the activities that we need to be doing and help educate landowners on are very similar. Some of the issues might be somewhat different, but you know, we have our unique challenges in the Illinois River watershed. We have major cities are in the headwaters of the watershed. So one of the very first things I learned really about the watershed is many times people think the water begins at pristine mountains and flows downstream into a river or basin or an urban area. Our headwaters is really a large river system is the urban area. So all these creeks and streams that we go by every day and may or may not know the names of or may not have a name are draining into the Illinois River watershed. So all the land is part of the watershed, and the river itself flowing north and then taking a turn west. Gathering gets larger as it goes from all the creeks and streams, but also from all the, we have 5 major wastewater treatment plants that discharge into the Illinois River watershed. 391 wastewater treatment plants in all of Region 6 EPA, which is Louisiana, Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. That's a pretty big region. 28 of those wastewater treatment plants have a limit on phosphorus of 1.0 or less, and only 2 have one less than 1.0. 5 of those 28 are in the Illinois River watershed. So we're looking at nutrient water quality trading. What else can our point sources do to improve the Illinois River watershed? And probably many of you have followed a lot of the some of the issues between Oklahoma and Arkansas, because we do share our watershed with Arkansas. Up until 2003, there was an agreement, a joint statement agreement between the 2 states where the wastewater treatment plants and all the cities would do an upgrade and reduce the amount of phosphorus that was coming down. Stu, I don't know if you were at the city at the time or if that was and built the West Side treatment plant. A lot of the issues between Oklahoma and Arkansas went back to when the city of Fayetteville was going to build the West Side treatment plant, and Oklahoma sued and said, no, Fayetteville cannot discharge into the Illinois River watershed. They were discharging into the Nolan plant, which discharges into the Beaver Lake watershed. That lawsuit went all the way to the Supreme Court. Eventually, that Oklahoma said, nobody says who won, because both sides had things that, you know, they either won or lost. But the Supreme Court decided that Arkansas could discharge into the Illinois River watershed, but they had to meet the Oklahoma standard for water quality at the state line. So right here is where the Illinois River crosses from Arkansas into Oklahoma. That's where they take the standard for the water quality standard of 0.037. So if the wastewater treatment plant limit is at 1.0 or below, and most of them are now at 0.05 and around that for most of the year or below, it's still hard to get from here to here and reach 0.037 when you get to the state line. It's not very far. So we have Bentonville. About half of Bentonville is in the Illinois River watershed, up to the home office and just over that way. But the Napa plant takes more than half of Bentonville's discharge, and then Tontitown, and then we have Rogers, Springdale, Fayetteville, and there are other discharges as well, smaller, but each of the cities has to have, and then some of our urban areas, just like Cave Springs, where we have the watershed sanctuary, just now is going on to a sewer system, a septic system, a step system, but still a sewer for the city where it's connected. So there's still a lot of work to be done in this area, still a lot of construction and development, and I think people realize now the importance of how we build affects everything downstream. So we have a lot of agricultural land. From 1996 to 2006, the land use changed though from 64% of pasture in 1996 to 47% pasture in 2006. So a lot of that had changed. The urban areas grew from 6% to 13% in that same period of time, but the planting areas for all of those is about 28%. They predict in 2035, that the land use in the Illinois River watershed will be 58% urban areas. So that will change dramatically. And that's just, I think, what our counties and cities are all trying to be very proactive in saying, how can we grow in ways that preserve and protect our creeks and streams and so on. So nutrient trading is one of those tools that's being looked at, and the legislature this spring, and it was unanimous from both the House and the Senate, voted on Act 1061. I'm sorry, no, in Act 1061 was where, in 2003, where the legislature regulated non-point source application of poultry litter in the watershed. So there are nutrient management plans that are required of landowners that have any land greater than 2.5 acres and are spreading any kind of fertilizer. They have to do soil tests to get the phosphorus limit and know how much phosphorus they can apply. Historically, people applied poultry litter because it was a fertilizer, organic matter, and they applied to get the level of nitrogen that they needed in the soil. But it was an over-application of phosphorus. And for 20 years, I guess, there wasn't a concern for that phosphorus until the phosphorus levels began to rise. And so now, many of you know, or probably know a lot more about this than I do even, but phosphorus is a mineral, and it binds to soil. So as that was applied to our soils and pasture lands, it bound the soil. When it's washed away into creeks and streams, it goes with that phosphorus goes with it. When it's on an unpaved road or washes into an unpaved road or off the field or off the golf course or yard, we don't have any separate stormwater systems. Everything goes straight to the creek or stream. So everything that's applied on the land that gives health to soil and plant, if it's in excess or if it runs off, it's not applied properly, it can do the same thing in water. It can grow those plants in the water that then cause the algae and so on. So the nutrient trading idea has been looked at, and Nathan Bench, one of Professor, I was going to say Rollins, but it's not. Yes, there we go. You can call me Dr. Found 4 states that have nutrient trading programs. One that went back as far as 1991, others that have been 2007 and so on. But in the Chesapeake Bay, 2 in North Carolina, 1 in Ohio, and looking at those programs and how they were set up and how they work. So basically, the inner watershed, we are looking at what is a total maximum daily load of a particular nutrient. In this case, for our watershed, much of it is phosphorus, though some is nitrogen as well. And the trace can be between the point sources, of which we have the major point sources, and it can also be traced between non-point sources. So a lot of the non-point sources come from stormwater runoff and agricultural runoff. How can we reduce all of the sources, right, for nutrient loading? So if we ask the wastewater treatment plants, which they've done in the last 10 years, 10, 12 years now, since 2003's agreement with Oklahoma to reduce the phosphorus load to 1.0, different people vary, but it was $225 million upwards of $300 million to get down to 1.0. Now to get even farther down to another limit just from those point sources will also incur large costs to the wastewater treatment plant, which is passed on to their customers, which are everyday households. So the idea is to reduce phosphorus at the best level, most cost-effective manner. So if we pay a point source, we pay a non-point source that may be loading phosphorus to a stream, it would be cheaper to pay for a stream bank restoration where that phosphorus is washing into the stream. It would also solve that problem and not have that loading from that stream bank erosion. But it would also save the point sources money until we get all of the sources down to as low as can be. There's a lot of dissension about the issue because in the past it does go back to people's pocketbooks, right? So when you ask a homeowner to increase their water bill $50 a month so we can reduce the phosphorus load in the wastewater, $50 a month is a lot to do that, and it's $600 a year. If we ask an agricultural producer to do a BMP or a best management practice on their land that would reduce phosphorus, most of those programs they can get cost share from NRCS, which helps tremendously for them to do that. And I don't know, I think just about $400 million last year was implemented in the Illinois River watershed for best management practices related to that much. These are programs that are having high impact. But the thing is, there's a cost share. So if the farmer has to pay 10% of $60,000, that's $6,000 up front that they have to pay. And then they might get paid back over the course of that BMP, or they might have to just incur that cost. So a homeowner at $50 a month, $600 a year, has 10 years to pay off $6,000. A producer might have to come up with that out of their operating costs up front on an annual basis, and then see those costs recouped. So it's a big investment for everyone to really be involved in water quality. And it's a great investment. I think the questions are, how do we get there? And how do we share the costs that we all have a responsibility to our watershed? So nutrient trading is one of those tools that the state of Arkansas has set up an advisory panel to look at how we might initiate a nutrient water quality trading program for Arkansas. So it would actually be a statewide program, but it would be initiated by watersheds because the trading has to be within watersheds. So if a wastewater treatment plant here is exceeding their limit, they can't trade with a wastewater treatment plant somewhere else that may be under their limit for whatever reason. That doesn't affect the same volume of water that's being affected by that point source. So they can trade among themselves, the point sources can. They can trade between point source and non-point source. And there are other non-point sources other than just individual agricultural producers. Stormwater is the nation's #1 pollutant to our rivers, lakes, and streams. So how does the city pay for stormwater control? One of the projects we're working on, the green infrastructure pamphlet there in the middle of the table, and these can be small to large, but they all add up, right? So a lot of cities Kansas City has a goal of 10,000 rain gardens. Portland has a goal of, so many thousands of rain gardens. But every drop of rain that falls that we can put into the ground to recharge, that isn't running off into a creek or stream, picking up speed and volume that then blows out a stream bank, and we kind of see all these stream banks that are coming out of our urban areas because of the speed and velocity of the recent flooding and things like that. It's a good example of, wow, the power that water has. And it takes everything with it, right, and washes out.
I wish we had permeable pavement.
Yes, yes. And that is a green infrastructure feature. We just put in a project at our watershed sanctuary that has permeable pavers.
Of course, in Europe, they use cobblestone.
There you go. And didn't know why really that was a good way to handle water quality, actually. But the bricks we use are called aqua brick, and they actually have even even more water conserved to be able to, yeah. But bricks will do similar, the idea is the water can soak in around those bricks, right? But these bricks are actually aqua forest, they help the water filter.
Well, good, I knew that committee, you couldn't use regular common stone.
Right.
Same situation.
Yeah. So as far as we understand, this is the first installation of these aqua bricks in Arkansas as the watershed sanctuary. So when people come there to learn different practices, they'll be able to see that, and we'll be able to see how it works. It's a challenge because where we're at is at the end of a kind of a slope. It brings a lot of rainwater off of the main street there in Cave Springs. It flows right into our little outfall that goes into Osage Creek. But cities are going to have to find a way to treat their stormwater for nutrients. And another tool that we're using is called a phosphorus removal structure. And it's with Oklahoma State University have installed one of these on a golf course in Stillwater and on a poultry farm with us in Westville, Oklahoma. And it's water that comes through a drainage ditch or before it hits a creek or stream where non-point source is coming. You use a phosphorus-sorbing material. It can be drinking water residuals or fly ash or steel slag. There's 9 or 12 different types of material that will actually phosphorus, when it runs through it, will bind. And it's dissolved phosphorus, the kind that's harder to take out of the stream than particulate phosphorus, which can be more easily taken up in the roots of trees and vegetation along the stream banks. So having that buffer, 50-foot up to 300 feet buffers along creeks and streams is a huge protection for our rivers, lakes, and streams. But there are some other things that can be done as well to take that phosphorus before it reaches a creek or stream, and slowing it down, keeping it where it falls is probably the best way to do that. And so tree wells, forest pavers, fire swales, retention ponds are something we see a lot of. They can be a whole lot better in terms of how they look, but also how they can take up rainwater. But what questions do you all have for either myself or Sarah? Because I know she's done a lot of reading on this too.
So how does the currency, I guess, per se, work for this nutrient trading?
Yeah, I think that's where the rub is. So somebody has to say what it's worth, right? And what it will be worth in terms of the trade is how much reduction you can get in phosphorus. So how many pounds of phosphorus if you do a stream restoration of this 1,000 feet. So there has to be a calculation that, well, how much is, more than likely to be in the creek if we don't do something. So the most highly sensitive areas are going to be the ones that need to be identified first. There are ways to do that. We're working with Dr. Narmendra Saraswat, who has a grant from ANRC to identify riparian buffer zones that need repair, that need more vegetation. Those would be a really great place to start.
So using watershed modeling over,
Yeah.
well, what kind of temporal period are you looking at?
What kind of what? I'm sorry.
Well, what kind of time period are you looking at for, say, like TMDLs? Are you looking at daily loading or yearly loading?
Well, right now, we don't have a TMDL on the Illinois River watershed. EPA started working on one several years ago. We don't know when that will be completed. Until you have that, there's not an actual goal or target. I think that we've already seen some things like the city of Fayetteville going into an illegal agreement with the Water District to do up to about $500,000 a year in reduction components into the West Fork of the White River. Part of that was several stream restoration projects on the West Fork of the White River. Those were paid for by the city of Fayetteville as a mitigation for between them and Beaver Water District. So Beaver Water District said, well, we're not going to fine you, but you need to take this money and do these projects, which is a really great use of that money to do the real impairments to address those and get that money on the ground where it makes a difference.
is that the WCRC? Did they work on any of
They
those?
were hired to do a number of those projects, but the agreement was between the city of Fayetteville and the Water District to see that load reduction.
Gotcha.
So it does, you don't have to have a nutrient training program or a TMDL even to do a voluntary training program. I think that was a really great example where everybody is a win-win-win for everybody there. It's costly, but it's effective. And it's less costly than having that cost incurred by a wastewater treatment plant and then still not addressing that load that's coming in, that's loading into the creeper stream that needs to be repaired. Those stream restorations that were costly, and most landowners, if they're losing, they're losing an acre of land, which is a lot. But let's say that costs them $3,000 to $5,000 an acre, and they lose an acre a year. That's $3,000 to $5,000 a year. That's a lot. But a stream restoration can cost $200,000 to $300,000 for 1,000 feet. It's about $200 to $300 a foot, linear foot. So you're not talking this way, you're talking this way. And most landowners can't afford those stream restorations.
Not to mention the repairs that a lot of times, especially this past season.
Well, how do they all do with the recent flooding?
I know the airport project had quite a bit of damage.
Oh.
I know at least $10,000 or $20,000 worth,
Okay.
but
Now, that's a significant cost we didn't, incur. So some of the things, if a landowner works with NRCS to do a stream restoration and it fails, then the landowner is required to replace it at their own cost. So they're very apprehensive to even enter into an agreement to do those if they're liable for replacement of something that might not last over the life of, what we would like to see it be. But there has to be a way to really keep that sediment out of the stream. And there's other best management practices like planting trees, planting native grasses, fencing cattle out of streams. My husband and I live on a creek. We have a small farm, about 150 acres, and a creek runs through it. There's about 75% of the land is on one side, 25% of it is on this side. The cattle go back and forth, right? We move the cattle from pasture to pasture. But we have a lane that they're fenced off, they cross by the lane. And then the pastures are fenced off so you can do rotational grazing. And then you have a riparian buffer that keeps trees and native grasses in there. We have 4 alternative watering systems. Cattle don't drink out of the stream. They get water from their watering system. So those are costly though. One watering system is about $17,000. Well, NRCS will pay about $7,000. You still have to pay about $10,000. That's a lot. And you can see improvements and you can cost that out over a number of years, but a lot of expense. And for a lot of small farmers, those kinds of practices have been basically out of reach for them. But this kind of nutrient training program could be a solution for everyone, where they're actually being able to still remain productive and do these best management practices, and the city can get the credit. If they're not meeting their load limit, they can actually buy credits from another reduction source and receive that credit